Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
All right, welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Dion's Daily Dose presents Face to Face with Dion and Shawn. I am Dion.
And I'm Shawn. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we have an interesting story today. It is the country. It's about the country of Georgia. A lot of people hear Georgia, they think Atlanta or Hotlanta, right? But this is the country of Georgia. And so you want to give like a quick rundown?
Sure. The Georgia Parliament passed a bill. It's called the Foreign Agents Bill, which would require non-government organizations that get 20% or more of their funding from overseas or foreign, they have to report it.
Okay. I don't see a downside.
I really don't either. But there's people protesting in the streets because they're saying that this is going to cause Russia to take over. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
Because Russia has a bill that's very similar in a law that they passed in 2012.
Okay.
So they're telling the people that this is bad. So
because Russia passed something like it. Okay.
Interesting. And they say it's going to hurt the funding for non-government organizations too, which I'm not sure why it would. Transparency is the best thing to have.
I don't know why. What's the term? Sunlight is the best disinfectant. Yeah. And it's true because with a lot of not just these NGOs, but our governments and people running for office follow the money.
Uh-huh.
And so if you have, for example, an NGO, which NGO is non-governmental organization, if you have an NGO that is trying to do a lot within a country, I think it's not only natural to want to know who's funding it, but also prudent that you know what country, especially, it's an NGO, so there's probably private citizens that are donating, but where are these private citizens from? I don't see a downside, but we're going to read.
I have two theories on this.
Yeah, by all means.
Either they don't want the funding to show that it's coming from George Soros Foundation.
Okay.
Or his groups, or maybe this is tied with Ukraine because there's a lot of fraud going in with Ukraine. So maybe the money this is just a theory and it's just speculation.
Yeah.
But maybe they don't want that money to be shown that foreign aid that our government is giving Ukraine is being rounded up into Georgia too.
Oh,
just a theory.
Yeah, but that's a very interesting theory, and it fits because, as we recall, anytime anyone brought up transparency about the money going to Ukraine, right? Accounting, where is it going? Some degree of tracking this money. Everyone lost their ever-loving minds and said, no, you want Russia to win. What?
And a guy, the parliament opposition leader, went on NPR when I was listening because on the way to Vapo, I was listening to NPR, and he could not come up with a good reason why this bill. NPR, the host, kept pushing him on, why would you be against transparency? And he basically tried to say Russia, and this is going to hurt the average person because non-government organizations aren't going to want to help the people of Georgia. But that doesn't make any sense.
No, it's not banning them. It's simply saying, hey, tell us where your funding comes from. Interesting.
And Russia banned some Soros foundations in 2015 under this law that passed.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's dig into what now, this is CNN, so enough said. But let's see what they have to say, right? Okay. So it says here about 50,000 opponents of a quote foreign agents, end quote, bill marched peacefully in heavy rain throughout the Georgian capital on Saturday after the United States said the country had to choose between the, quote, Kremlin-style law and the people's Euro-Atlantic aspirations. Oh my, what a way to frame this.
And they want to join the European Union. So they're saying that this law would interfere with being able to join the EU.
Interesting. All right, here is a quote. We are deeply alarmed about Democratic backsliding in Georgia. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan wrote on X. Democratic, wait a minute. So transparency equals Democratic backsliding now. This is interesting. Okay, continue the quote. Georgian parliamentarians face a critical choice, whether to support the Georgian people's Euro-Atlantic aspirations or pass a Kremlin-style foreign agents law that runs counter to democratic values, he said. We stand with the Georgian people. You know, I'm just going to pause here for a second because that is a popular phrase that's thrown around a lot. We stand with such and such people. When often the people saying this are very frequently interfering in elections and, supporting policies that are bad for the indigenous people of the area, the citizens there. I find this very interesting. The CNN article continues, the bill, which would require organizations receiving more than 20% of their funding from abroad to register as, quote, agents of foreign influence, has touched off a rolling political crisis in Georgia, where thousands have taken to the streets to demand the bill be withdrawn. Now, that in and of itself, that paragraph, I find this, very, very interesting because all this bill does is say that if they get more than 20%, that's 1/5 of their funding from another country, that they have to register as agents of foreign influence. I genuinely don't understand why people would protest against that. Interesting. The article continues. The crowd on Saturday waved Georgian, European Union, and some Ukrainian flags. Now that is interesting. And in a break with the past, included more older protesters, as well as the many young people who have thronged the streets over the past month. Quote, the government should hear the free people of Georgia, said one protester in her 30s who gave her name as Nino, waved a large Georgian flag, and led one of the 3 columns that converged on the city center, which blocked many of the city's roads and filled the cobblestoned heart of Tbilisi's old town. I don't know. It's Tbilisi.
Yeah, I think that's the capital of Georgia.
Tbilisi. I don't know.
I remember how to pronounce it.
Yeah. Quote, we want to enter the European Union with our proud nation and our dignity, she said.
But joining the EU, you kind of give up your sovereignty a little bit.
Yeah, and this is what I think a lot of people don't understand. When you join the EU, you are essentially surrendering control of your country to this hegemony of nations, this of which they're not elected, I might add.
No.
All of these EU in charge people are appointed.
For the most part, they do have elected elections, but those are only for the parliament.
Mm-hmm.
And the parliament really doesn't have too much power.
They don't have any power, yeah. Well, much. They don't have much power. I won't say they don't have any, but
they have a little.
A little. Anuki, a 22-year-old student of acting, said it was her generation's responsibility, quote, to make sure that our future and the future of generations after us are safe, that they have freedom of speech and they're free, basically. I genuinely don't understand at this point, but let's keep going. Quote, and we don't want to be part of Russia, she added. We never wanted to be part of Russia, and it has always been and always will be our goal to be part of Europe. Parliament which is controlled by the ruling Georgian Dream Party and its allies, will begin committee hearings on the bill's third and final reading on Monday. Opposition groups had called for a fresh wave of protests from Saturday.
This is an old article, so they did pass it overnight.
So it has been passed.
It has been passed.
Okay. But this, I do find this fascinating. And I think it's a symptom of a much larger problem, which is people, I think, for the most part, especially the people that are like out protesting against transparency. Again, this 22-year-old is saying, we don't want to be like Russia. This bill has nothing to do with Russia. If anything, it would help to expose Russian influence. But they've been led to believe that this bill, Russia, sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
The crisis has pitted the Georgian Dream ruling party against a coalition of opposition parties, civil society, celebrities, and the country's figurehead president, with mass demonstrations shutting down much of central Tbilisi almost nightly for more than a month. Georgian opponents of the bill have dubbed it, quote, the Russian law, comparing it to legislation used to target critics of President Vladimir Putin's Kremlin. Okay. The European Union, which granted Georgia candidate status in December, has said that the bill will pose a serious obstacle to further integration if passed. Georgian Dream says the bill will promote transparency and Georgian national sovereignty.
Which I can see.
Which makes sense to me.
Me too.
Oh boy, I'm going to butcher this name.
I would too.
Bidzina Ivanishvili. Bidzina Ivanishvili, the founder of Georgian Dream, has said the law is necessary to stop the West trying to use Georgians as, quote, cannon fodder in a confrontation with Russia. I could actually see that. Sullivan said that Georgian Dream appeared to be deliberately trying to break with the West, even as both the ruling party and Georgian public opinion has traditionally been in favor of the country joining the EU and the U.S.-led NATO military alliance. Sullivan wrote, quote, Georgian Dream's recent rhetoric, proposed legislative changes, and actions go against the aspirations of the Georgian people and are designed to isolate Georgians from the United States and Europe. Yeah. Okay, so yikes.
Do you want the link? I should have sent it to you. The link that showed it passed, because I don't think I sent that one to you.
That's all right. We're gonna. There's another article from the Guardian. Yay. And let's see what they have to say about it. Again, they're protesting. This is let's see here. I don't know. This is from the 13th of May. So yesterday?
Yep.
Okay. So it passed after this bill.
After
this article, right? Okay. So let's get into this real quick, and I'm just going to do a quick scan. The name of this article, if you want to get more deeper into it, is "Why Are Georgians Protesting Against a Foreign Agents Bill?" And it is from The Guardian. Violent police crackdown follows nightly protests by thousands opposed to law seen as anti-democratic and pro-Russia. Georgia has been rocked for weeks by demonstrations against a bill that would force non-governmental groups and media to register as, quote, organizations serving the interest of a foreign power if more than 20% of their funding comes from overseas. Final vote in Parliament on Tuesday, which just happened, and it passed, you said.
It did.
So, riot police armed with water cannon and tear gas were accused of beating protesters picketing outside. Okay, so why are they protesting? Let's see what The Guardian has to say about it. Thousands of Georgians have been demonstrating since 17 April when the country's parliament approved a first reading of the bill. Protesters, largely young people, say it will sabotage the Caucasus, because they got the mountains there, the Caucasus Mountains or whatever, country's hopes of joining the EU and stifle civil society. It has been described as, quote, the Russian law by critics as it resembles repressive legislation used by the Kremlin. You can tell there's a slant here. Georgia, with a population of 3.7 million, joined countries trying to gain accession to the EU when it was granted official candidate status last December. The political crisis comes at a time when many Georgians fear their country is moving away from the West. Quote, everyone clearly understood that the purpose of the adoption of the Russian law is not the notorious transparency, but the change of the country's foreign course and the completion of Russification. Transparency International Georgia said at the end of April. What the ever-loving heck? Okay, what has the government been saying? The government, which has been in power for 12 years, claims to be pro-EU, but it has avoided placing sanctions on Russia over the war in Ukraine. And critics claim it has been seeking to strengthen ties with the Kremlin. The ruling Georgian Dream Party's founder, Bidzina Ivanishvili, has defended the bill and lashed out at the West. In a recent speech heavy with conspiracy theories, the billionaire hit out at a, quote, global party of war and suggested the country's pro-Western opposition was controlled by foreign intelligence services. Interesting. Mm-hmm. But of course, same sentence, heavy with conspiracy theories, The Guardian says. Quote, this is from the article again. The comments further fueled fears among the government's critics that the ruling Georgian Dream Party, which has been in power since 2012, could crack down on dissent before parliamentary elections later this year.
But that bill would not allow, I don't understand the connection there.
I don't either. I see a whole bunch of, oh my God, this is the end of the world. But I'm not seeing anything that truly, I haven't read the bill, so let's be clear. But if even the Guardian says this is what it does, if a organization or media gets more than 20% of its funding from overseas, it has to register as basically a foreign agent. And that's what it does. There is real, and we see it here in the United States, there is real brainwashing and propaganda going on where they convince people black is white, up is down, left is right, just like 1984. And the novel by George Orwell is very prescient in today's time. I mean, it's right there in people's faces. And it's shocking to me the level of deception that is happening. Because when you say transparency, and they call you Russification, what? It's mind-blowing. It truly, truly is. I don't know, man. But it's passed now, and I think the results are going to be interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if the president or somebody has to sign it still. I got to remember.
Oh, okay.
And they're talking about vetoing it, but in Parliament, they're probably going to override the veto.
So you think they'll be able to override the veto? Interesting. Well, this is certainly something to keep an eye on. And again, I think it speaks to the level of deception that is happening when you have people protesting in the streets against transparency.
Yeah, I don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't either. But I mean, how many people are truly educated about even the bills that pass in our Congress? Not many.
Not many.
Not many. And so that's why I think that like the conversations that we have are so incredibly important is so that people can be informed and a little bit more than a headline, get into it, talk about it. So yeah, mystifying, absolutely mystifying. So that's it for this episode, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you'll join us again, and we'll talk to you again very, very soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America. I hope you have a great day.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose. This has been Dion's Daily Dose, hosted by Dion Bergeron. Executive producers, Shawn Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Dion's Daily Dose, all rights